Good morning and welcome to Plymouth Church and Sunday Forum. We're very glad you're with us, either here in the chapel or online. One or two, just a brief reminder. There are hearing aids on the table here by the door. Feel free to use them if they'll be helpful. And there are microphones available for questions, and please use those so that the people watching at home can hear your question. And as usual, a big shout out to Cody, who makes all this possible. My name is Jackie Prince. I'm a member of the Sunday Forum Committee. We're indebted to Janet Howard, Plymouth Church's librarian, for putting us in touch with this morning's speaker, Emily Meyer, who is Executive Director of the Ministry Lab, an amazing ecumenical church resource I had no idea existed. It provides access to books, a labyrinth, singing bowls, curated online resource lists and toolkits, in-person summits and online webinars, and programmatic and systemic consultation. And Emily is a modern-day Renaissance pastor, ideally prepared to oversee this variety of resources. Ordained in the ELCA, she has served as a pastor, a choreographer, mindfulness facilitator, music and worship writer, planner, and presenter. She serves on ELCA's Truth and Healing Initiative and the EcoFaith Network of the Northwest Minnesota and St. Paul area Synod. And she was the Liturgical Arts choreographer and coordinator for the Lutheran World Federation's 2023 global meeting in Poland in 2023. Please welcome.
I aged well.
Please welcome Emily Meyer.
Thank you, Jackie, for that introduction, and thank you also to Janet Howard for making this connection and getting me here this morning. I'm really, really delighted to be with you all, delighted to be with all the folks at home. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to introduce you all to the Ministry Lab, and as I'm talking, please feel free to interrupt with a question, I'm hearing this morning already that there are ways that the Ministry Lab might be really useful to all of you, and I'm grateful, glad to hear that. So let's discover some ways that the Ministry Lab's work can align and support what is happening here in Plymouth. Before we jump in, I'm going to invite us to take a moment to breathe and sit in gratitude if we can. So I invite us to put our feet on the floor and sit up straight and pay attention to our breath for a moment. As we inhale and exhale, allow yourself a moment of experiencing gratitude. Breathe in and out. Identify your gratitude for breath, filling us with all that we need in each moment, emptying us of all that we do not need right now. Gratitude for this luxurious autumn, transitioning now into the dormancy and regeneration of winter. Gratitude for community, rich with welcome and belonging. Gratitude for the abundance of resources and gifts with which God shares wisdom and insight, experiences, and comfort. Gratitude for the Spirit, who with each inhale swoops deep into our soul, with each exhale draws us further into the abundance and promise of God's future. Breathe in and out, fully, deeply, in gratitude. Amen. So that was a little jump ahead of our agenda, a breath prayer that is one way that I hope enjoy working with congregations, inviting us into spiritual practices that may be new for some of our people, but that help us ground in the present and also look into the future with, as we develop some resilience to engage what's next, grounded in the Spirit and in the presence of our neighbors. Okay. I was going to start with what is the Ministry Lab, but I was also invited to say a little bit more about my own background, so I'm going to do that really quickly. I am ordained in the ELCA. I grew up in southern Wisconsin, just south of Madison, but I also now, my family is sort of centered around northern Minnesota, which is another one of those ways that I think I'm kind of suited for this job. I served the whole state of Minnesota for the UCC and the PCUSA, so it's really handy to have a mom who is the church organist in northern Minnesota, a sister and brother-in-law and niece who are very active in their congregation in Duluth, another brother who lives in Virginia, which I might be there this afternoon, and then we have some land over in Glenwood, which brings me to the western side of the state. So I'm shy in the southwest and southeast, but I got the northern hemisphere of Minnesota pretty well covered. I graduated, my MDiv was at Luther Seminary, but I have a Master's of Arts in Religion and Theology from United, so I'm also fairly well steeped in the UCC polity and traditions and teachings, and worshiped for several years at Linden Hills UCC, which is no longer in existence. But I'm finding those connections really important these days. I'm doing more and more work now with Isaiah, which is developing statewide polity and agendas for state legislatures, and the Christian chunk of that. Elliot Howard, who was my pastor at Linden Hills UCC, is one of my strong connections there. So everything kind of comes back around. In the Lutheran Church, we say it's a really small Lutheran world. I've discovered it's actually just a really small world, because you keep running into people. So the Ministry Lab is financially supported and serves the supported by and serves the Minnesota Conference UCC, the Presbytery of the Twin Cities area, and the Synod of Lakes and Prairies. So those are our main ecumenical supporters. We are shifting our membership policies a little bit now to make it more accessible to individual congregations as well. So I'm going to talk more about that a little bit later on. So any congregation, any denomination can be a member of the Ministry Lab, and we'll talk about what that looks like in just a bit. Historically, the Ministry Lab began in, as far as I know, 1974, and it was in the basement next door at the Minnesota Conference, Minnesota Church Center, and was, for the bulk of its existence, was a lending library. The goal being to resource more progressive congregations who in the 70s, 80s, and 90s found it really difficult to find resources for Sunday school, confirmation, youth ministry specifically, and in particular. So for all of those years, you could stop in and go to the basement and dig through a giant library of books, curricula, magazines, newsletters, and things like that to glean from the wisdom, and then also to borrow some of those pieces to use in your own congregation. That children, youth, and family focus shifted slightly over the years to include adult faith formation, because adult faith formation is also faith formation. And in more recent years, that expanded to include all areas of worship, or all areas of congregational life. So not just study and learning, but stewardship, worship, building use, mission and vision. So we now have resources that cover pretty much the whole gamut of church life. In 2019, the library was moved into United Theological Seminary's new space over in south at the intersection of 280 and 94. And that move also precipitated a shift in focus a little bit. So still a lending library, but now that we were working in conjunction with United, we thought there'd be more opportunities to develop webinars, bring in, access the staff and faculty there, create some training and education opportunities. And you'll notice I keep saying 2019, and in 2020, so I started December of 2019, and that was the mission I was given, and in 2020, everything closed. So, not maybe webinar or seminars at United Theological Seminary. So we transitioned pretty rapidly and worked on webinars utilizing United students and staff, and those were pretty well received. And since then, the webinar phenomenon has passed a little bit. So currently, I oversee a small lending library. We reduced size when we moved back into the Minnesota Conference offices, which is where the library exists now. But through COVID, I started curating more and more online, and we'll go through what that platform looks like now so that I can share resources really easily with people who are looking for new resources via this online platform. And I've also started collating what I call toolkits, which I try to make them intergenerational, and they incorporate spiritual practices, reading or learning opportunities, and engagement. So moving from talking spiritual formation and talking about it into action in the community. And then we do more consulting now, and we'll talk more about the different forms that takes in just a bit. As Jackie pointed out, we also do rent out, we have 3 large canvas labyrinths. This is the smallest of the 3 on the right there. And those are available to our member congregations for a very minimal fee. And we have 1 singing bowl that we can also rent out for congregations who are exploring using those. So we went from a lending library of books, but we also lend out labyrinths and a singing bowl. This is what you will see when you go to our landing page for these things called LibGuides. This is the online platform that I use to share books. And the thing I like about this is I can share books, I can share blog posts, I can share organizations. So it's not just books on the shelves, I can also say, for instance, congregations that are looking at reparations, maybe. There are organizations that help congregations specifically with the legalese, but also the process of how do we get to consensus on what does that mean, what does it look like for us, and I can share links directly to those organizations in the LibGuides. And if I can do it, I'm working on 2 pages here. Will it go? Oh, good. So this is what it looks like when you get into a LibGuide. This is one of our newer ones because I heard within 1 week, I heard from 2 different youth ministry people, a librarian and a parent, that they could not find meaningful, worthwhile books for teenagers. And I said, well, that is my job. So we now have a tweens and teens LibGuide. And each of these tabs then gets you into a different different curated list. And so we have fiction books, and these are ones that are available in our library, and then there are others that are available out there in the world. You can click on any one of these titles, and it will take you to the publishing house or a bookseller so that you can learn more about the book and then purchase it if it's interesting. So these are really fun because as issues evolve and as congregations come to me looking for resources, I can add tabs, I can add a whole new LibGuide, I can create curated lists and package them together in here, and then they're really, really easy for folks to navigate. And now let's see if I can get back to the, whoops, there's the dog. That's my brother's dog. And I have completely X'd out my entire thing. I knew that was going to happen. Shoot. Give me a sec. Yeah. It was -40 this day, and she is from Taiwan, so she was chilly. The dog, that's me. The dog is my brother's dog, and he lived in Taiwan for many years. And
wish he was back there, I'm sure.
yes, kind of. Okay, sorry, you're going to see a whole bunch of tabs here right now. There we go.
What was he doing in Taiwan?
He is a teacher, and he was teaching. For the first few years, he was teaching little kids exclusively, and then in later years, he was teaching children and adults English. There we go. Come on, keep coming. There we go.
My daughter did the same for a year in Taiwan.
Oh, when was she there? Well,
20 years ago, maybe?
okay, well, they would not have crossed paths. Yeah, he loved it. He absolutely loved it. Okay, so there are LibGuides. We also, in the move, I've developed another LibGuide that is just the children's books in our library to help folks find those as they want. The way I update our LibGuides and keep them really pretty current, I hope, we have a weekly post called 6 New Things. So I am going through publishers' newsletters, I'm going through PCUSA and UCC newsletters, I'm going through ELCA newsletters, and I am looking for new publications. I'm reading blogs, I am finding all of these things, and then I post them in 6 New Things, which is deceptive because it's never just 6. I cannot condense it to 6, but it's what is coming out from publishers right now that seems timely and important and useful. And so that goes out bi-weekly, every other week. This goes out. And when I post it, there's a thing called 6 New Things, which is the new publications, but then it's also community opportunities, spiritual practice opportunities. Sometimes there are concerts, sometimes there's like a social action that's happening, and we keep those things, retreats or other learning opportunities go in there as well when that goes out. One of those learning opportunities that I create is Connect Summit. So every other year, it'll happen in October of 2026 is our next one. We get together with children, youth, and family ministry leaders. Some of them are ordained, some of them are staff, some of them are volunteer leaders from across the state. And then the last two, we've had people from further afield, which is really exciting. We just are developing our theme for 2026, and we've just confirmed that David Shearer, who goes by the performing name of Agape, he's a rapper, Lutheran, but he's also just completed a curriculum with peer ministry called Roof Cutters, which is all about inclusion. So if there is a roof that is keeping somebody out of your community and away from the healing of community, how can you become a roof cutter to get those folks into the center of the community? So he will be our keynote presenter at Connect in October. We will be at Clearwater Forest this year, and we usually have about 50 folks join us, 45 to 50. So that's an exciting thing. I've also, around about December last year, I started thinking, okay, what do I need to do? Because we are going into a dark time in our nation. How do I help congregations engage more fully and be more present in their community? And so I developed this, I guess you could call it a toolkit, but mostly it's a networking hub. I call it the web. And so it's in one of the LibGuides, but it's all organizational. It doesn't have hard copy resources. It's all connecting congregations with organizations that are already doing the good work that congregations are starting to be more and more engaged with. So you can find immigrant and refugee organizations, how do you become a safer space, organizations to help you with that, mental health things, organizations that are working on BIPOC rights and Two-Spirit LGBTQIA rights, rights for differently abled and neurodiverse peoples. So all the different areas of justice and ministry, they're in there, and I keep adding organizations that are local so that you can be working with local organizations if that is where you feel called to be active. These are some tools that these are all tools that are developed by an organization down in Nashville called the Ministry Leadership Center. They are tools to help congregations innovate. So this is where some of you might want to pay attention. I'm a trained facilitator for all of them, and so the joy of that is you get to have an in-person facilitator instead of somebody zooming in. The Innovation Culture Index is all about the culture of your congregation and how people experience it. We often, I throw my little congregation up north under the bus a lot, sorry. That congregation, small congregation, very typical rural congregation, and they understood themselves to be a really nice congregation. We're really nice. That word gets used a lot. And there was a couple that joined the congregation. They'd been there for 5 years. And finally, the woman of this couple heard somebody say, well, we're such a nice, it's so easy to get to know us, and we're such a nice congregation. And she said, I've been here for 5 years, and no, that's not true. And people didn't listen because their experience was, we are a nice congregation. Here's a woman who is new, she'd been there for 5 years, saying that's not true. So the Innovation Culture Index helps us gather all of that data. Some of us experience it this way, some of us experience it this way, and look at it and say, okay, what are some growing edges so that we can actually be the congregation that we want to be as far as our culture goes. So we're not going to do systemic changes with this, but as the name indicates, it does help with developing a culture that is more resilient and open to change. And that's a big thing these days, right? A lot of us are realizing there are things we need to change, but change in any community is really difficult. It's very multifaceted. A lot of feelings are felt, and those feelings are all really valid, and we need to figure out how to navigate all of that. So that, it's a 30, nope, sorry, I get that number wrong all the time. It's like 42 questions that are online, so everybody in the congregation is invited to take it. It takes about 10 minutes to complete. And we can see the scores aggregating as we go. And I come in and facilitate what do those scores mean and what are some action steps for the congregation to make some shifts. So that's sort of the short-term, simplest thing. The community discovery package builds off of that. We start with the ICI, but then it's a 3 to 4 month process where a leadership team is invited to gather some demographics, do some interviews inside the congregation and outside the congregation to look at what are people's needs, what are people's wants, and then what are the community perceptions, what are community needs, and how do people in the community perceive us as a church. And we gather all of that data together. We do some asset mapping, and then we can see, okay, here's areas where ministries either need to change or we need to develop a new ministry to address these needs. And we're recognizing that we have all these assets that we maybe didn't know about before that can do that. I'm using this tool to help 2 congregations in St. Paul merge, and this is how we're going to develop their vision statement, because they're listening to themselves, but it's 2 of themselves, and that can be a hard listening project. So this is a tool, and we're listening to the community outside of the building, because what good does it do to come up with a mission and vision if we're not responding to the needs of our community? So this one is again 3 to 4 months of investment, and not a ton of work, but a little extra homework for the folks on that leadership team. The third one is 18 months long. It's called the Ministry Transformation Lab, and it is all of those community discovery things, but a little bit more time so that you can dig in a little more deeply, and so that we're working with internal systems in the congregation so that this gathering of data becomes a little bit more the way that we operate all the time. So if we're going to try something new, we are practicing it in the Ministry Transformation Lab, but it becomes part of how we do things moving on. And it does, congregations are saying we are so much more nimble because we've now learned how to build consensus or build community belonging or build a shared vision together. And then we just have buy-in. It's a lot easier to proceed. So this one is kind of all of those steps with a little more, I should say the community discovery package, there's also a theological grounding, like we do some theological studying about why innovation is important. This includes that and builds on that as well. So those are those 3. Any questions about those 3? Because that's maybe a key area of interest. Yeah.
So do you see yourself as a consultant then?
Question is, for folks at home, do I see myself as a consultant? And the answer is yes. And I am not a systems consultant, so if there's like a point of struggle like that we know, I'm not the person that's going to help you navigate that. But I can help navigate. We've got some cultural barriers to change, or we're not sure what steps to take next. We're not sure how to build the consensus. Yes, then I am absolutely here to help you walk through that. Mm-hmm.
2 resource questions. Do you have a resource around spiritual direction offerings?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And secondly, do you have resources around how governance committees, I mean, we have a lot of them here, from the deacons to the leadership council, how they can make their work a spiritual, life-giving practice that doesn't burn out?
Yes, and again, for folks at home, do I have spiritual direction resources? And the answer to that simply is yes. I do have books on that. I can help with that, yes. Finding people who can do spiritual direction, yes. I can also help with that, yes. And how do we ground our leadership teams in spiritual in their own spirituality and in the spirituality that shapes this community. Yes, I can also help with that. And again, that might be bringing in not me, but somebody else, and kind of doing some coaching along those lines. Or if I can address it, I'm not sure, like I would want to talk more about what you're looking for, but yes.
Well, the source of the question that might help you where I'm coming from is that a member here gave me a book that the title has something in it about how to make your governance committees a worship service or more worshipful or something like that. And there were parts of it that I quite liked, but it also was sort of a cookie cutter, a Protestant church. If you do a hymn at the front, and then a verse at the end, well, I don't think that'll fly.
Right. That is one of the joys of my job, is taking something that there might be a really good book about it, but the nature of a book is to say this is how it goes, right? I mean, it's really hard to write a book that is not recommending a cookie cutter approach. And so, yes, to say what are the needs of this community, what are the assets of this community, what are the interests of this community, and then developing something from there, yes, yeah. That's the fun part of my job, actually. Thank you, Jackie. Uh-oh.
Anyway, just a logistical question. Are there fees for your services, or are you supported by the sponsoring organizations?
We'll come to that. Okay. So yes, okay. Yes and no to answer the question, and we'll get there in just a little bit. Okay. So I've been vaguely following a timeline. So in 2023, I took on this new role of consulting for the Innovation Culture Index, the Community Discovery Package, and the Ministry Transformation Lab. In 2025, we are innovating again because we had to move our library back over here. And as a result, we got rid of a chunk of our library, and now I'm discovering almost no one is asking to access our library. So is the physical library sustainable? Is it worth sustaining? So we're thinking about that. And we are starting to provide more and more consulting in these bigger picture things that aren't just give me the next book or the next curriculum. So we have developed a new way of engaging with congregations. We are doing more extensive and in-depth programmatic, systemic, and vision kind of consulting, as we were just talking about. And we are decreasing our homemade webinar type things. So our last one was a 4-part panel series. We did Church Organized Neighbor Love, which was an invitation to congregations to be more engaged in community organizing and working with local community organizations around justice work. That we videotaped the whole thing. I'm hoping to use excerpts in a new toolkit, but that'll maybe be the last one that I actually create. And I'm doing more creating of toolkits. So these are the 5 that I have currently. I have 2 in the hopper coming out hopefully in January, which will be for Lent and Easter of this year. And they're very particular to Lent and Easter this year. The toolkits, generally, I try to make them intergenerational. I try to make them really interactive, and they generally include spiritual practices, books or curricula, sometimes a few videos, engagement or discussion questions, and then an action step that goes, or multiple action steps that go along. The first one, Sharon Day, is in this one. And if she wasn't, I would be an idiot, or I would add her right now. So Water Threads is the first one I made, and it invites congregations to learn your local watershed, and then who are your local water protectors, the indigenous communities that are already serving your water, protecting your water, and how might you join them in that work. And so looking at relationship building, and also there's science and faith questions in there. There are a couple of really great curricula in there about water and faith. So that's the first one. Then the need arose to create Israel and Palestine. My husband teaches history, well, he did teach history of Africa and the Middle East, so I was fortunate to have a whole bunch of access to really good speakers on Israel and Palestine, so they are listed in there, and looking at different ways that your congregation can be an advocate for peace. And then there's some intergenerational discussion guides and books and videos in there as well. The Eco-Anxiety Toolkit I built in preparation for the EcoFaith Summit of 2024, and looking at especially young people. Children and youth this is a new diagnosis that exists in the world of psychology and psychiatry. Eco-anxiety is a real thing. How can our congregations start talking about it and engaging it in a healing way? And one of the key things there is start doing things really publicly that are healing the planet. That is actually not just cathartic, it is an actual source of healing for people with eco-anxiety. And so how do we not only model it as adults, but how do we engage our young people in doing that work, because it is therapy for eco-anxiety. And then I have two that are related, and we're going to dig into them, and this also might be of interest here. Courageous Spaces is definitely, again, intergenerational, includes guidelines for creating safer spaces for all ages to have difficult conversations, some templates for establishing group norms, some deep listening practices, and then worship and prayer resources, and spiritual practices for deepening personal and social awareness and resilience in the midst of difficult conversations. And then Graceful Conversations is a 5-part video series that I created with Tammy Walhoff, who is the director of Minnesota Lutheran Advocacy, Minnesota. There we go. She created the curriculum, and it is about engaging our neighbors in difficult discussions. So how do we talk across divides around some difficult topics? And we again include some spiritual practices. So the videos are set up that you can start the video, watch the video, and then we give you a chance to pause, discuss, engage the spiritual practice. And then I think in this one there's a couple of pieces of homework as well. And the two that are coming up are, we don't know, this is not an actual title, this is kind of my working title, because Ashes to Action is a book that was just published by an author here in Minneapolis, and I can't steal it without her permission. So, but the idea is moving from Ash Wednesday to Easter, so the Lenten journey, and we're talking about Isaiah's Palm Sunday path and helping congregations become community organizing centers. And how do we get our neighbors, how do we get ourselves involved, how do we get our neighbors involved? And then the other one, which I've been working on a lot longer, but it's taking me a lot longer, is centered around the book in the middle, Building a Moral Economy by Cynthia Molabita. She was our speaker at the EcoFaith Summit last year, and that is, as the title suggests, how do we build a different economy in our nation? And we start locally and we build out from there. And so this is pairing with the teen book, The Marrow Thieves, and then children's books for Sunday and Wednesday Faith Formation. Lots of activities from Zero Waste Kids, which is another, it's got a strong tie to Minnesota in the authorship and execution. So this will come out, this will be for Easter season 2026. Here's the membership question, so thank you for that, Don. We are shifting how membership works now. So congregations in the UCC and the PCUSA across the state have access to all of these things that I've just listed for free or reduced fee. So those 3 tools from Ministry Leadership Center, I can't offer those for free because they're not mine. I didn't license them. But we have licensed with Ministry Leadership Center, so we have, I think, 13 ICE Innovation Culture Index for free. So our member congregations can access those for free, and then a reduced cost for the Community Discovery Package. Can't do that yet for the Ministry Transformation Lab. That's its own thing. But with the UCC and PCUSA congregations get additional consulting because you get unlimited consulting because you are an adjudicatory member. So we can facilitate any one of those tools, and then we can do follow-up consulting as a result. Now, in January, we will launch these 3 tiers. There are 3 tiers for congregations or individual organizations, and then those kind of build into 3 tiers for judicatory members. So currently, our website and 6 new things, that weekly or bi-weekly publication, those are free to everybody. Anybody can access those. The scan is the same. The labyrinths and the singing bowl are available only to member congregations at a reduced fee, and they are not available at all to non-members. That just helps us keep them intact. Individual congregations, depending upon the size of the congregation, $100 to $300 per year, get the access to our LibGuides, to our lending library, and unlimited resource consultations, access to the labyrinth and singing bowls, and then we're including a monthly featured newsletter for their newsletter. The next tier includes all of that, and then also includes the innovation and creative consultations, workshops and speaking, book discussions, and toolkit access. And then tier 3 is all of the above, plus the ICI, the CDP, and the Ministry Transformation Lab, additional facilitations or consultations through those. And then judicatories, tier 1 is, everything is a tier 1 congregation, and then you also get 3 additional congregational consults and 3 ICI facilitations, or CDP, for 25% off. And the tier 2 judicatories, all of the above, plus additional consultations. So it kind of keeps building from there. That is that. Here's where you can find everything. You can contact me at theministrylab.org is our website. Ministrylab@UCCMN is our .org is our email. And the phone number is up there as well. And you can text or call just about any time. And that's it. Whew. Yes, please. Oh, yeah, let's get a microphone.
See if it works now. Yeah, I saw you up there with the voting, so hopefully it works now. So a comment and a question. The first comment / recommendation, you mentioned the water thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell you that in our gallery right now, there's an exhibit.
Yes.
You know about it.
Well, I just saw it, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's good. I was going to suggest you walk through there.
Yes,
But
thank
did.
you. Thank you. It's lovely, yeah.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with getting it there, but I liked it. And then the other thing is, you mentioned progressive resources and whatever. And this may be something I should know, but like the Minnesota Church Center, is it mostly progressive churches, all progressive churches, or if not, because I grew up in a conservative church in South Dakota, so I know they exist, at least in South Dakota.
Oh, they exist all over the place.
I'm sure. So is there pushback from them, or are there just such a large percentage of progressive churches that they're kind of quieted by that, or just how does that work?
So, yeah, the ministry lab is designed to work with, I mean, people just come to me. So I'm not going into a congregation saying this is what you should do, unless a congregation is inviting me to consult, and then we probably have already figured out how our vision and mission align. And so I am not resourcing more conservative congregations because they simply will self-select to not engage. In the UCC and the PCOSA, yes, there are some more conservative congregations, but those 2 denominations are among the most progressive in this area, along with ELCA and actually one of my members is a Baptist congregation, and every time I talk to them, I'm like, you're freaking me out, because they're super like socially, politically, they are very liberal, and they are very outspoken about that, and it is like completely different from my stereotype of a Baptist congregation. So there are congregations that are breaking those stereotypes on both sides of the spectrum. And so I don't see a lot of negative feedback from where I am. It's the individual. I do work with congregations who identify themselves as a more progressive congregation in a very conservative neighborhood or community, and I do work with them on how do you navigate that. because they do, I mean, many of them right now are experiencing pretty extreme kickback. Governor Walz's congregation in St. Paul had to basically lock down when he was running for vice president. So there are some really, really powerful kickback. I don't experience them personally or through my organization, but the congregations I work with do. So that's part of my job, is to help them navigate that. In the Minnesota Church Center is, I am not affiliated directly with the Minnesota Church Center. I happen to be there because the Minnesota Conference UCC offices are in that building. They house the Minnesota Conference UCC and the United Methodist Church. But other than that, and the ELCA, I should know that. But they also house Muslim groups, some Jewish groups, and others who I don't know where I would identify them on a progressive, less progressive spectrum, but they coexist very nicely together. And they do work really well together. And I think they're finding their common ground and letting the differences go. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Emily, could you talk about the mental health components of your ministry?
Wow, yes, thank you. I was diagnosed with depression in high school, which was a really early diagnosis because I'm 55, so we didn't talk about depression when I was diagnosed. And so I have lived with it. My husband is diagnosed with anxiety just a few years ago, so I personally am pretty well versed in it. I did during my MDiv, my personal study was in pastoral care of depression, and working with clinics and hospitals on working with people with depression. So just in my personal capacity, I am very comfortable speaking. I've worked with NAMI and its predecessor body here in suicide prevention for a few years. And so I'm connected to those folks, and I have worked with the Minnesota, I always get their name wrong, Minnesota Health Connect, which is a mental health connection. Like, it's a brilliant organization that helps folks connect with the right kind of care for free. So I'm really happy to have those connections. I also, as a facilitator of contemplative practices, I am grateful for that theological grounding and that spiritual grounding, but I also am a facilitator of mindfulness, which brings me into public school spaces in a safe way, where I'm not talking from a theological spiritual lens, but I can talk more on that emotional lens. So I bring that into consulting and working as well, to the extent it's applicable or needed. And I'm really always happy to work on building out another toolkit or building out another way that congregations can get rid of stigmas, talk about things more openly, and foster deeper awareness about mental health issues and neurodiversity, and all these different things that are newer on our horizon, on our vision, but really, really essential work for churches to be doing. Does that answer your question? Okay, great. I'm seeing a nod.
I'm afraid that the time is over, but thank you so very much, Emily.
Thank you.
You introduced us to lots of things that we had no idea about.
Thank you, Jackie. Glad to be here. Thank you all for being here today.
And please come back next week. Dennis Kelly will talk about his recent book, Mindful Writing from the County Jail.
There you go.
And the organization Right to Hope, that facilitates therapeutic writing for incarcerated men and women in the Minnesota jails. I think it'll be another very interesting forum, so please come back. Thank you. And thank you, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you. Good.